Welcome back, everyone. We always try to find these unusual resources for you. And today is no exception. We're actually diving into a guide for architects.
Yeah.
But what's cool about this is that it was originally written in Arabic.
Wow.
So it's for architects who are working in the Gulf.
Oh, wow. In the Gulf. Okay.
So very specific. And we're really excited to see what kind of unique advice we can glean from this perspective.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting angle because, like you said, the Gulf region, it's a very specific context in terms of the architectural landscape.
Right.
It's incredibly competitive.
It is.
You have talent coming in from all over the world vying for these projects.
Right.
And there are obviously certain cultural nuances that come into play that you might not necessarily find in your typical career guide.
Right. You don't often think about the cultural side of giving career advice, but it totally makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the way you would advise someone in, a Western country versus someone in the Gulf states might be completely different.
It could be completely different.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this document so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because right off the bat, it jumps into this idea of mentorship.
Okay.
And it places a very strong emphasis on building relationships.
Interesting.
Early on, like while you're still a student.
Oh, wow.
With your professors.
Okay.
With more established architects.
So it's interesting. So you're saying it's not just about networking to get a job later.
It's not a transactional thing.
It's like a long game.
It's a long game.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating those connections. And that's something that I think is very much, rooted in the culture there.
Right.
And, the author gives an example of how even during, university years, students are encouraged to connect with architects.
Okay.
Through professional associations, through workshops, seminars, these kinds of things.
Interesting.
So there's this very proactive approach to building that trust and understanding.
Right. You don't often think about joining a professional association when you're still in school.
Right.
I didn't. I don't know about you, but...
I didn't either.
Yeah, and it's interesting that that's priority number one, seemingly, in this guide.
It really is emphasized, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's a really valuable takeaway, even outside of the Gulf context.
Right.
Because,
mentorship, good mentorship can change your career.
Absolutely.
So the next thing, and this is something that I'm very passionate about.
Okay.
The author talks about self-directed learning.
Okay.
And the importance of international experience.
Right.
So those are two big ones.
Yeah, and they go hand in hand.
Okay.
The way this author sees it, this is really interesting. They're saying that in today's world, we have so much information at our fingertips. It's not about knowing everything.
It's overwhelming.
It's about knowing how to find it.
Yes.
How to filter it, how to apply it.
And quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about efficiency. And especially in a field like architecture, which is constantly evolving, right? New software,
always
new techniques, new trends. You can't be expected to know everything.
You care.
But if you know how to learn something quickly, that's invaluable.
Yeah. It's like learning how to learn is almost the most valuable skill you can have now.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. In fact, I was just thinking, I was working on a personal project recently and I needed to learn a new 3D modeling software. And I kid you not, I just went online, I looked at some forums, some tutorials, and within a week, I was fairly proficient.
There you go. See?
It's amazing.
That's a perfect example.
What you can do. And I think that ties in really well with international experience.
Exactly, because it goes hand in hand. The author's recommendation is to work abroad for at least 2 years.
Okay.
And they emphasize paid opportunities.
Okay.
Because obviously, financial stability is important.
Right.
But what I found really interesting is that they specifically mention leveraging remote work opportunities.
Oh, wow.
And approaching international firms directly.
So this guide was written
before
remote work was a thing.
Exactly.
So that's really interesting.
Which is really forward thinking.
Yeah.
Because they were already seeing that shift towards more flexible, globalized work environments.
That's really interesting. I'm curious, how does the guide suggest people go about doing that? How do you approach these firms?
Well, they really emphasize the importance of building a strong online presence.
Yeah.
So, having a portfolio that showcases projects that might be relevant to the Gulf region.
Okay.
highlighting skills in software that are commonly used by those international firms, like BIM software, for example.
Okay, so you're targeting your skill set to the market you want to be in.
Exactly. And then tailoring your application to each specific firm.
Oh, right.
So really demonstrating that you've done your research.
Yeah.
You understand their work. You understand the region.
All good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good advice.
It's very practical advice.
Yeah, very practical.
Which is, I think, what's so great about this document.
Yeah. And then, not just like these high-level ideas. It's like, okay, here's how you actually do it.
Yes. And then the last point, which is really interesting, is the emphasis on English language skills.
Okay.
Which, again, in a globalized world, we know how important that is.
Right.
But they don't just say, oh, learn English. They go a step further.
Oh.
They encourage the exploration of specialized software and AI tools to bridge those language gaps.
That's so interesting. So they're already thinking about that?
Yeah.
Interesting. So it's like translation software specifically for architecture.
It could be, yeah.
Wow. And that just makes me think about how much the world of architecture specifically has changed, even in like the last 5 years.
Oh, absolutely. Even in the time that this document has been published, right?
That's right.
Technology has advanced so much.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to see that the author was already on top of these trends.
Yeah.
And recognizing that
the future is coming.
The future is here, and you need to be prepared to adapt.
Adapt or die, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
So it all circles back to continuous learning.
Right? It all comes back to that, doesn't it?
Always being adaptable.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, this has been incredibly enlightening.
It has.
It makes me wonder what other insider information is out there just waiting to be discovered.
Right.
Right. Like every field, every industry has its own kind of like hidden gems of advice, right?
Absolutely. And it's up to us to find them.
It is. And on that note, listeners, we would love to hear from you. What are some of the like best pieces of advice that you've gotten that are very specific to your field?
Let us know.
Yes. Let us know.
Yeah.
Because we would like to continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
So until next time.